PCN is brought to you in part by the following underwriters.
Welcome to PCN. We have a great show tonight, including an exciting news segment that brings us an update from the State House in Boston.
We also bring you two stories, one from Pembroke and one from Kingston, that have presidential connections.
Leslie Cutler will be on set for another installment of Mindful Moments, and Brian heads back to the streets of Plymouth to hear how people are preparing for winter.
PCN meets the woman behind the task force to end homelessness for Plymouth, and we learn about a new fad taking shape in Duxbury, adult coloring.
We will begin with our newest segment, Right Out of Boston. We are proud to bring you our newest segment on PCN, State House Report. In this segment, I will travel to Boston to talk to our representatives about issues facing our region and our residents. Our first trip brings us to Senator Vinnie DiMacedo's office to hear his thoughts on the 2016 ballot question pertaining to the legalization of marijuana. This November, the people of Massachusetts will decide via the voting booth whether marijuana should be legal for general consumption or not.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me on your first show. I just wanted to talk a little bit about something I had the privilege of doing, and it was myself and a group of legislators, there was 8 senators, that went on a trip to Colorado. If most people don't know, but Colorado was one of the first states to legalize marijuana, totally recreational marijuana, not just medical marijuana. And so because it's going to be on the ballot in 2016, our presidential election, we thought it might be important to understand how does it affect Colorado? How has it affected their public safety? How has it affected their public health? How has it affected, government as a whole? And have we seen a use in, a growth in the usage of marijuana? And so we went out and we spent 4 days in not only in a conference room, but we actually went on a tour of the facility. We spent an entire day with the industry to get a sense of what they call seed to sale, from actually growing it from a seed all the way to the point where they sell it on across a desk or across a table. So it was a very interesting and eye-opening time for us, because we got a chance to see how it is. We were in downtown Denver, where you can find people selling, storefronts all over the place selling marijuana. Clearly different for us. We've heard about it in Amsterdam, but to see it in America is clearly different. So very educational, and we learned a lot about some of the things that we would need to do if it ever became legal. And just as a caveat, I'll be honest, I'm not in support of legalization. But the reality is it's not a legislative decision. It is a decision by the voters of the Commonwealth. And so if they do decide, we need to be prepared on how to do it. That's the one message that we heard from the people from Colorado, is that be prepared. Understand what are the challenges that you'll face if this were to come to pass. And one of the things they said that was really important is get some baseline data. Find out how many people end up in the emergency rooms because of a bad reaction to pot, a bad reaction to an edible. 50% of the industry is edibles. That's something I also didn't understand. And so how do you regulate that? How do you make sure that those edibles don't get into the hands of minors under 21. We also understand now that any controlled substance is bad for someone under the age of 21 because your brain is still developing. We've learned a lot about that, especially with the heroin epidemic. So we really have to focus on making sure that these don't get into the hands of minors. So it was really an eye-opening of trip that gave us as policymakers a better understanding of what we need to do if the people make this decision.
Well, Maureen, I'm so glad that you're doing this State House news for us, because we hear a lot of local news here on PCN, but we don't often get to go into the State House. So not only is it a timely issue, but it's a great thing that you're going to bring that to our set from now on.
Right. It's a nice bridge between, you know, what goes on at the State House that directly impacts us and then bringing it local. I hope it'll be a very beneficial segment for folks.
Oh, I think it will be, in a very hot topic
yes,
all around.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Homelessness is a year-round epidemic, but we tend to notice it much more during the frigid winter months. PCN recently met with the president of the Plymouth Task Force to End Homelessness to find out the steps they're taking to get a handle on this ever-growing problem.
Here in New England, not much compares to an ocean breeze on a warm summer's day. In the winter, however, just the sound of that wind is enough to make you chilly. Staying exposed to these conditions for extended periods of time without the proper protective clothing can lead to frostbite and hypothermia. And if you're homeless in this weather, it may very well kill you. Many of us, myself included, will put on a hat and gloves before even getting out of the car and walking 20 feet to the front door of the house. The thought of sleeping outside in this weather is unimaginable, but for too many, that thought is a reality. That's where the Plymouth Task Force to End Homelessness comes in. Located on Court Street, the headquarters is a very welcoming place, despite the sign on the door, which Connie Mellahorst assures me is not for real. Mellahorst, who was just named the 2015 Person of the Year by the Old Colony Memorial, explains the group's mission.
We were founded in 2004, and our mission is to provide emergency sheltering for homeless individuals, mostly men, because that's what our shelter is for at the moment, and also to obtain and maintain permanent supportive housing for formerly homeless individuals. And the third mission is eventually to prevent homelessness altogether. So that's our mission.
With town committee approval and community preservation money, the task force now owns these 3 properties on Court Street, which housed 12 formerly homeless individuals, as well as 3 staff managers. And for those that aren't in the homes, there are other alternatives to being out here on the streets.
Currently, we are using 2 sites for our emergency shelter program, the First Baptist Church on Westerly Road and Christ Church, which is on Court Street.
The task force is a 501c3, meaning it's a tax-exempt nonprofit group. But that doesn't necessarily mean there's money flowing in at a steady clip. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Our organization does not get any funding from the federal or the state government or local. The only money we received from the town of Plymouth was to buy our properties. Up until this year, running the emergency shelter program really didn't cost us a lot. But this year we had to develop a new model. We're now collaborating with Father Bills, which means they're providing us with a paid chaperone, and we are now having to pay for some expenses involved in using one of the church sites for a longer period of time. So we've had to do some extra fundraising for that.
Of course, the long-term goal is to end homelessness. So how do they go about getting there?
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure what the answer is, except that eventually we're looking to establish a resource center, like a triage place where people will come in and we'll be able to provide the resources to get them into housing.
In downtown Plymouth, I'm Brian Sullivan, reporting for PCN.
It has been documented in recent years that women's sports tend to receive less coverage and fewer accolades than men's sports. Yet the skill set in most cases are identical. While watching the U.S. women's soccer team in a World Cup match, Pembroke's Isla Ludlow was confronted by her younger brother proclaiming that men are simply better athletes and people don't care about women's sports. This is just the catalyst to get young Isla to send off a fiery letter to the President of the United States to voice her complaint. What happened next might surprise you.
Ayla was watching the World Cup soccer team game against Japan, I believe, and back in June. And she was watching the game by herself, and her younger brother, Nicholas, who's 12, came in to the room and started talking about men's sports and men being better athletes than women, and men's sports are more popular than women's sports and that sort of thing.
When my brother had come into the room and told me that girls aren't that very good at sports, and it kind of hurt my feelings because I know that they are, and I have different beliefs than him.
I think I think Nicholas's comments were just typical, stereotypical male type A personality, you know, feeling that men's sports are more important, and perhaps, you know, that's how society is. But I think in hindsight, it's, you know, women's sports are certainly making a huge, I don't want to say comeback, but a huge advance in public awareness and from an entertainment value.
I just said that because from my point of view and from people at my schools, like, people say that boys' sports are always more aggressive and they have like more activity and there's just a lot more going on.
Ayla felt the call to action to maybe do something about it. So a couple weeks later, I was handed a letter and she asked me to mail this to the White House. And I said, okay. I said, and I don't even think I read the letter at the time. She just asked me to mail it, just don't worry about it, and that was that.
So when I was writing the letter, I don't know, I kind of just let out all my feelings because, like, it means a lot to me.
In September, the White House Correspondence Office called and asked if they could use the letter on their website when President Obama introduced the UConn women's basketball team to the White House as part of their championship, you know, title this year.
I didn't know what to say. I was kind of like, oh my God, what just happened? I was like, Dad, are you like joking with me? Or like, I didn't really believe him. And then he's like, yeah, just look, there was an email and everything. And I was like so surprised, and I don't know, I just couldn't believe it.
And then in October, near Halloween, they called again on a Friday and asked if we could come down on Tuesday, or if I could bring Ayla on Tuesday, to introduce the president to the World Cup soccer champs, the women's team, and obviously that was an incredible honor, and as it turned out, an incredible experience for both her and I. The experience in Washington, just going to the White House, going through the security, meeting the staff, ultimately having the opportunity to meet the president and the vice president, some of his cabinet, and as well as the women's World Cup soccer champs. It was just a real surreal experience, and I had an incredible sense of pride for not only our country, just for having the opportunity to be at the people's house, if you will, but also for my daughter, who, you know, sort of was the catalyst for all this to happen. And while it may be small and minor in the big picture in life, it was just an incredible experience that was monumental for both of us.
He's a really, really nice man, and I don't know, he's just very honest. And I did get to hug him, and it was really, really amazing. He's really, really nice and sweet. I also got to hug Joe Biden too, and shake his hand. What my message is that I want all girls to feel comfortable with playing sports, and they're just as good at boys and sometimes even better, but yeah.
Cool.
Good for Ayla. What a strong young woman, and what a powerful message.
I absolutely love this story. And when I talked on the phone with her when I was setting up the story, it still sounded like she was a little bit on cloud 9, maybe cloud 8, but
yeah,
she still sounded very, very happy about it.
Good for her.
Her father is just so proud of her. And,
sure.
And such a great thing for, you know, a 13-year-old to do.
Right.
For womankind.
Yep,
you know?
good for her. Good for her.
Absolutely.
Strong woman.
I like it.
If you have kids, you know that the best way to get them to want to do something is to tell them they can't do it. That was the case for Alina Mulhern when her mother told her that because she was not born in the United States to American-born parents, the Constitution would not allow her to run for president. That was enough to get the fire lit for this young lady as she took her case to the Massachusetts State House. Brian Sullivan has her story.
Since the year 2000, the United States has seen more women run for and win positions in public office than at any other time in this nation's history. In 2012, Elizabeth Warren became the first female from Massachusetts to be elected United States Senator. There are currently 2 women running for President of the United States. So when a 5th grade girl from Kingston says that when she's old enough, she'd like to run for president herself, we're likely not as surprised as we may have been, say, a half a century ago.
I think I'm qualified to be president because I love my country as much as anyone else does. And I think anyone who is a citizen here should have opportunities to run for president.
The one thing getting in her way, besides still being in elementary school, is the United States Constitution, as her mom explains.
One of the requirements is that you be born in this country. She was adopted from China when she was 10 months old, so she was born on foreign soil. But once she stepped foot in America, she became an automatic United States citizen. However, the law still says even though you're an automatic United States citizen at 10 months old, it doesn't matter, you still can't run for president. So I'm there to challenge her to see if she's committed to an idea, and I think when a child's committed to an idea and shows perseverance and shows some commitment level towards it, I'm going to support them in anything that I can do. So that's what I've done, and I continue to do that. As long as she wants to pursue this, and she may want to be president, she may not want to be president, but she wants the opportunity for her and other kids like her to be president. I think that's the most important piece.
She must have been up to the challenge because after some legwork and lots of letter writing, young Alina was able to testify before the Massachusetts State House. As the student council rep for her grade with a little bit of mock trial preparation under her belt, she was ready to go.
I prepared my testimony and I would say it out loud to Mom and Arian, so I got used to saying everything, and I tried to memorize as much as I could.
When Alina isn't writing letters to the president and testifying before the State House and Senate, she's still just an 11-year-old kid that likes to do 11-year-old kid stuff.
I like to build the Lego architecture series, and I like to play the piano. I play softball. Right now I'm doing an indoor training. I also like to do drama and the rec program with the acting.
No matter which way it goes, Alina's mom is just glad the issue is seeing some daylight.
If the law gets changed, that's fabulous. If it doesn't, at least we're talking about these issues. And on Alina's front, I think just having a voice be heard, I think one of the coolest things to her has been that there are kids that come up to her, high schoolers, college kids, that literally walk up to her and say, hey, I know you, I saw you on the news, you stood up for what you believed in, and I am too. I have this issue at school, or I know this kid who has this issue and we're trying to get this resolved. I think that's the coolest thing. Kids have a voice and they can be heard, and I think that's important. Perseverance is really important to a well-rounded person, and I think that's what she's showing people.
As it stands right now, the resolution is before a joint committee of the Massachusetts State Legislature. From there, it will go to the House and Senate floor and hopefully get a favorable vote. If it does, they will then take it to the Massachusetts federal delegation, where they'll bring it to Washington and hopefully file it as a bill. In the meantime, they'll just have to wait this thing out for the next 8 to 10 months. Reporting from Kingston, I'm Brian Sullivan for PCN.
It's funny how so many things come full circle. Things that were once in vogue fall out of style and then find their way back years later. Hopefully this won't be the case for fanny packs. But within the last year, coloring books have found their way back into the mainstream for adults. Once a month, the Duxbury Free Library hosts an adult coloring night, so we stopped over to get a look.
This summer, it seemed that the world went crazy about coloring, and I just saw coloring books in bookstores and everywhere I went, and I got into it myself, and different people I talked to that worked here also were into it, and we said, hey, if we like it, other people might like it, and so let's go for it. Let's have people come to the library and color. We have a few local people, but I have a meetup group online, Duxbury Free Library Coloring for Grown-Ups, and so we get some people from around the South Shore. There's usually different people every time, and 1 or 2 regulars. It's all been women so far. So what seems to be the cool thing about coloring is that because you're just doing the same motion over and over again, it sort of lets your brain quiet down a little. So you're being creative but also relaxed at the same time, and so you get into a happier place because you're calm but you're thinking at the same time. We started the group in September, so it hasn't been going on very long. It's going on for the foreseeable future, the 3rd Thursday of every month from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. We're really excited about the coloring night in May, which is, I think, the 19th, Thursday, May 19th. The Duxbury Rural and Historical Society is working with us to have a joint coloring program. And they're going to take images from wallpaper or rugs in their historic houses and turn them into coloring pages. And Carolyn and Lori are going to talk about Duxbury history while we color. So we're excited about that. We've had about 5 or 6 people each month, I mean. And it's a nice, calm group. We're pretty chit-chatty, but I just like having things happen in the library that aren't necessarily just about studying or finding the new book. We like having a nice, different program for the community. It's free, it's happy, it's easy. It's enjoyable to kind of get back into that kid headspace where all your cares are just, what color do I do? And it's creative, but anyone can do it.
We won. Over the weekend, the mid-Atlantic region of the United States endured its first major winter storm of the new year. Of course, Plymouth was not immune, and here we are, several inches of snow later. Before the winter weather touched down on shore, our Brian Sullivan hit the streets to see how folks here in the town were preparing.
Right now, the Plymouth downtown area looks decent. A little snow here and there, but nothing major. For now. It was right around this time in 2015 that we got our first big snowstorm of the year, and word around the campfire is that another storm just like it is heading this way soon. If there's anyone that's got a complaint about the winter of 2015, it's probably me. I spent about 3 months shoveling snow, and my takeaway was that I should probably move to Southern California where I don't have to deal with this anymore. Of course, I'm not there. I'm here in downtown Plymouth, and I'd like to find out what other people's lessons were from that treacherous winter and what they're planning to do to prepare for this upcoming storm. Of course, the first guy we spoke with was here from Florida. But he'd been here before, so this year he decided to take a more practical and sensible approach.
Drive very slowly, a lot of winter jackets and winter boots. My first visit up here, I just had tennis shoes.
Being practical and sensible seemed to be the order of the day.
I have my shovels ready, my son-in-law's snow blower is ready to go, and the cars will be parked in the appropriate position in the driveway for what's going to happen.
I've invested in an all-wheel drive vehicle. It's a Subaru Forester. It's going to be really effective, I can already tell. And I'm going to get a snowblower.
Well, we've got snow blowers ready to go. We're prepared and ready, which means it won't snow this year. Got our shovels ready.
I've already got my rock salt. I've got the snow blower up and running. I had a little dusting the other day, so I was able to get started on that. My driveway's a hill, so got to have a lot of rock salt.
Ice on the sidewalks is no laughing matter, so safety shouldn't be overlooked.
My lesson is to keep your eyes on your feet where you're walking, because I was looking up at the pretty blue sky, slipped, and knocked my noggin. So that I've just moved here from the south, so I'm not used to really walking on ice.
The thing that I'm worried about is the snow and the ice, because I have to use my cane, and if I fall, I'm done.
Okay, so maybe it is a laughing matter for some people. And then, of course, there's always that one person that gets it right every time. So maybe we should all take some notes.
I have four-wheel drive. I drive very carefully. My husband has a snowblower.
There's a good chance that by the time this story airs, this little section of street will be covered in snow. So I suppose I ought to be thankful that it's just cold and windy right now. Reporting from downtown Plymouth, Ryan Sullivan for PCN.
We're happy to have licensed mental health counselor Leslie Cutler back on set with us. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, Julie. It's great to be here.
Third edition of Mindful Moments.
Absolutely, my third edition.
We're excited to have you back. And today you're going to talk about creating deeper, more meaningful relationships.
Yes, and we're going to look at this from 5 perspectives.
Okay, so the first perspective is listen to understand.
Yes, absolutely. So I believe that all of us want to be heard. All of us want to be understood. But so often relationships that end with, a lot of arguments tend to leave us with this horrible, bitter aftertaste. So often when individuals are speaking to us, we're not really listening in the way that we need to. We're too busy building our arguments and building our defenses. But really the goal is to construct a bridge of understanding through the chasm of the argument so that you can come to a place of agreement. And really, if there's a lot of good communication and listening in a relationship, there'll be very few problems because everything will kind of be out there.
Right. And if you don't understand something, it's really a good idea to clarify and confirm what the other person said and meant by what they said.
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
And that can really solve many potential issues to come down the line.
Okay, second?
The second one is to pay attention to assumptions. We all know people who assume the worst in everything. Well, that person hurt me because they're selfish, they're unkind, they don't care. We all know these people, and we cannot truly know the place that another individual is coming from. So if you don't know, if the behavior seems unclear, what you need to do is to ask, what is meant by that? Why was that said in that tone? Please help me understand. And then to listen carefully and be able to believe it. I think so often we let this go, and then these assumptions become our truth. And this is what creates the big distance individuals find between themselves. There's a quote that I really like by Stephen Covey that says, "We judge ourselves by our intentions, and we judge others by their behavior." So
true.
It is so true. So, if we assume that other people will have positive intentions and that we're all really just doing the best we can, well, then we will have a much more positive and understanding experience.
It'll be reflected out.
It will be reflected out.
Number 3 is be kind in words and deeds.
Yes. And then life happens. A bad day at the office or sitting in traffic for hours on end. We wind up coming home and that kindness gets lost in the way that we project out our anger and our frustrations to those around us. So, it really can be a challenge to show loving kindness to those that we love most on a day-to-day basis. But it really has to do with showing love and kindness to ourselves, and then that kind of coming out to those in our circles. So being kind and loving to yourself goes hand in hand with the way that you wind up treating other people as well.
Okay, the fourth one?
Is find wholeness instead of expecting somebody to complete you.
Yes, and everybody has a problem with that, I think.
Everybody does, and yet we all seem to know this on some level.
But we don't work on it.
But everything that society and culture throws our way is about finding your other half, which in some way assumes that we're all broken and looking to be completed with somebody else.
Right.
So we wind up finding a person that we're drawn to, and we create this kind of symbiotic merging that becomes so toxic and unhealthy. So truly, it's important to kind of take time for yourself, understanding that within that solitude, you can find yourself, have a better understanding of yourself, nurture yourself, and practice your own self-care.
Okay, and for our last minute, our number 5 is learn to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, and I love this one.
It's so true. And, I think that, again, this is where society sort of feeds this, that, we always need to be creating these epic moments, and we should, look to our partner to create this for us. But the reality is there is so much beauty that can be found in just the day-to-day. And sometimes sharing those kind of very small moments together, or taking a walk together at the end of a long day where you're holding hands and kind of connecting, or sitting down over a morning coffee with somebody can be paramount and can be so crucial and have so much beauty wrapped in that.
Right, just that one simple act sometimes is more than a big, magnificent one.
Absolutely, very much so.
Thank you, Leslie.
Oh, thank you.
Again, wonderful, wonderful advice
Thank
about
you, Julie.
relationships.
It was a pleasure to be here.
This time of year, Valentine's Day coming up, it's a good time to kind of reassess our relationships.
Yes, and remember that all great relationships and love stories start with the love within ourselves first.
That's right. Okay, and thank you for watching. Please check out our website for more information and links to each story. And we also put all of our episodes on YouTube. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow PCN on Twitter for updates and news. We'll see you next week for more PACTV Community News.